Good morning and welcome to the 11:11 show with Joanne on Destination Uri. I'm joined this morning by Colleen Milligan from our Ambulance NI, and we are going to chat this morning about the work that our Ambulance NI do. We are also going to, explore how people can get on board, how people can support the work of our Ambulance NI. And Colleen's going to join me for the first part of the show, and then I'm going to be moving in and chatting about Men's Health Week and Water Safety Week. So for anybody watching interested in any of those topics, we'd be delighted to have your questions. And I'm really excited to hear the story of our Ambulance NI, Colleen, this morning. So thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to Destination Uri for hosting there as well. So you'll see on screen that we have some images there of the Air Ambulance and the incredible work that they do. Colleen, I'll hand the space over to you. So if you want to connect in there and just let us know what your role is within our Ambulance NI, and indeed what our Ambulance NI do and why it's so vital for us to support this organisation.
Okay, brilliant. Listen, thank you very much to yourself, to Try the Alternative, and to Destination Uri for giving me an opportunity to speak on behalf of our ambulance. I'm sure, like every other charity, we've all been impacted by COVID-19, particularly because we really rely on public donations to keep the service going. So profile for us is really, really important, and it's lovely to be able to talk about the service. So our ambulance was born really in 2017, after a long period of working to try and get it up and running. We've never had an air ambulance here before, until the Air Ambulance Northern Ireland came on board then. There's air ambulances across Australia, New Zealand, Britain, across Eastern Europe, but we didn't have any. So no longer were we going to feel like that anymore. We wanted it. And the business case was put forward really to enable people to save more lives and improve patient outcomes. So our Ambulance NI was born by a team of trustees, and its first tasking was on the 22nd of July 2017, and it was to here, where I live in Castlewellan, and it was to a young boy called Connor McMullen. He was 11 years old. He was on his family farm, out doing the farming like a normal Saturday morning, and unfortunately was involved in a tractor accident, had a significant head fracture. And the call went into 999. Our ambulance at that stage, they were in training and ready to get on board, but they were still training. But when the call came through, they thought, we have to go to this. This is where we can really make the difference and potentially save a life. Within 8 minutes of that call, they had landed in Connor's family farm, and provided pre-hospital care to him, and then a further 8 minutes by way of helicopter to the Royal Victoria Hospital. 3 years down the line now, Connor is now doing our 3 Peaks Challenge in September for our ambulance, still an avid supporter. And just to say, even within 3 months of that very traumatic accident, he was back playing football, and back to school as well as planned. So that's where it can really make the difference. It brings the hospital, that emergency care team, to the scene of an accident within minutes. From its base in Lisburn, at the old Maze Long Cache site, it can get to the farthest part of Northern Ireland within about 25 minutes. And they do pre-hospital surgery. I mean, Joanne, you had emailed me asking for one of my favourite facts about our ambulance, and I think it really still amazes me that once they arrive on scene, within minutes, to any trauma, could it be a roadside, a farmyard, a sporting incident, a workplace, they can do pre-hospital surgery. They are now carrying blood on board. They can now land at the helipad at the Royal, which was a huge thing for us this year. So it really is about saving lives, saving brain, and saving limb. We've got 15 consultant doctors there that work on rota, 8 full-time paramedics, and 3 pilots, and they all work on rotation every day for our ambulance, 365 days a year, to provide that critical care service for everybody across Northern Ireland. And I suppose just to say, since that first tasking to Castlewellan in 2017, there have been over 1,400 taskings, so that's 1 or 2 every day they're going to. And the bulk of them to Newry, Mourne and Down council area. So over 230 of those have been to this area. So I suppose it just shows the need for it, the impact that it is making as well in our communities. And, through your work that you do, Joanne, we talk about trauma and the psychological impact of that, of people going through those traumatic experiences. I suppose what I love about it is that our ambulance is hopefully helping prevent an awful lot of that trauma by sending people back home to their families well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're talking there, Colleen, and one of the things that strikes me is, and has struck me about the work of our ambulance, is how vital those minutes and those times are. In Connor's story, that round trip, within 16 minutes, he was in hospital, I think. That would have been 50 minutes, maybe an hour, perhaps longer, depending on traffic and all of that. And at a time, actually, what we're very much in the conversation at the moment is getting A&E services established back into Daisy Hill. A lot of that conversation is centred around time. And in traumatic incidences, time is of the essence. It is the most important thing that makes a difference, as you say, between saving lives, saving brains, saving limbs. And to be honest, the work of our ambulance was something that was kind of probably very much in the back of my head. I mean, I knew it existed. I remember the talk at the time, and I remember different bits and pieces when it was being set up. But I think until these things really come to your door, you perhaps don't understand the implications of it. Thankfully, it's at this stage in life, it's not something that I've had personal experience with. I do have a friend who is a very avid supporter. She is an ex-ICU nurse, and I guess in her work saw just how vital that time was, and she has very much played a role in bringing our ambulance NI and the work that they do to my awareness. And as a result, that was probably one of the reasons that I chose, well, it absolutely was one of the reasons that I chose our ambulance to support as part of the summer solstice Stress Less experience. And it just, when you see numbers like that, in my family, we have experienced head trauma as a result of an accident 40 odd years ago. And I can only imagine the difference that this service would have made, perhaps, to the outcomes of some of that. So, I totally believe it's incredible work. Oliver's just mentioned in there, brilliant service and must be supported. Thank you for that, Oliver, because absolutely, I think there's huge need for that. And we talked about that whole area in terms of costs. For one of those missions that goes out, what are the costs involved in that, Colleen? Because I think when we can really look at where money gets spent and we understand how much it costs for these things to run, we get a better understanding of the difference that we can perhaps make.
Yeah, it's a big amount of money, Joanne. It's fully supported by our community, who have just been outstanding. It's £5,500 a day to keep this service running. And the quicker I said it doesn't make me feel any less worried about it.
No.
I think for me, coming from the charity sector, what I absolutely love about our ambulance is the fact that all the medical crew get involved in fundraising for the service, because they know the impact that they can make when they get there. And we currently have a team of 12 doctors, paramedics and pilots taking on a cycling challenge for us. In October, they've done zip lines, they've done abseils, they've done Belfast City Marathon in their full gear, because they know the importance that they can make once they arrive on scene. So fundraising is really important. The bed of our fundraising has come from the community, and they have been absolutely fantastic. But, none of us know, we hope to never need this service. But if you are in need, or you are involved in a traumatic accident, or one of your family or an employee, this is the team that you want to get to you. They are experts in what they do, and they bring that gold standard of care, and they're absolutely excellent in what they can do. And I talked about the impact of COVID-19 for all charities, but for us, it has had a huge impact in our fundraising. And those traumatic accidents are still happening. The team are still going out as much as they were, you know, because people are out on the roads running, they're out cycling, they're taking to isolated roads. People are maybe doing more DIY projects at home, you know, because maybe they don't want to wait on, you know, a professional coming in. So they still are going out to those trauma accidents. And I would just encourage people, you know, that if you are thinking about doing something, to get involved. And, you know, by getting involved in the summer solstice stress less experience, you're investing in yourself. You know, and that's really, really important at the minute. You're doing something for yourself, but you're also supporting 4 fantastic organisations.
Absolutely, and we know that this time of year is a hugely busy time for the farming community, and that, you know, there are unfortunately so many tragic accidents in the farming community, and because of often the rural isolation and all that is going on there, that obviously brings another level of challenge. And I think this year as well, you know, children have been out of the school environment for so much longer, and they probably have been helping out more perhaps around the farm, around home, and then, you know, that continues. But with longevity often comes kind of a sense of complacency. You know, we're already now longer off or out of the school environment than we would be typically over holiday times and things like that. So the more familiar something becomes, kind of the more we sort of knock it out. And you mentioned there about people being out and about. And I think in the early stages, you know, I was noticing so many families and so many people on rural roads. But the beauty was that there were very few cars. So I think just, you know, it's important to mention at this point, just as a refresher for all of us, that, you know, the roads that we were walking maybe 7-8 weeks ago now have a much higher volume of traffic, walking, cycling, whatever we were doing on them. And also, and I know, Colleen, you have another meeting to nip off to, so I'm going to kind of get us wrapped up on this part of the conversation. But I'm also very much aware that this week is Water Safety Awareness Week as well. And just, you know, more and more people, perhaps because swimming pools and things are closed, looking at open water swimming and all of those things, and how important it is for us to have the backup when, as you say, we hope that these things, we never need them. But we would like to think that if we do, the services are there. So, you know, it has definitely been a journey for me over the last few weeks, finding out a little bit more about our Ambulance NI and the incredible work that they do. So I would just like to say a huge thank you to the team and for all the work that you do, because I certainly know, as you mentioned, in kind of fundraising areas, it hasn't been an easy time. So have you any kind of little final thoughts that you'd maybe like to share just before you pop off to your meeting? Anything that you would like our viewers to know, or that you think is important for them to reflect on or take away with them?
I think probably for me, I go out and speak to an awful lot of groups, an awful lot of companies about the work of our ambulance. And I think what I would love to get across is the absolute pride that I have working with this team, and that it's very rare that we do have an awful lot of pride, you know. And I think for the people of Northern Ireland, you know, just these people, they are true life heroes. They really are. The work that they do, what they go out to, they are absolutely fantastic. And it's their aim in life to save lives. And, you know, unfortunately, they can't save everybody's lives because people may have passed, you know, in that instant. But that is their sole aim when they're going out to everybody. Yes, it's a charity. There's loads of different ways you can support us. You can sign up with the Stress Less Experience, which is a great way to invest in yourself. You can sign up and become a club member of our ambulance. You can sign up to our 3 Peaks event and get out into the beautiful morns in September. Socially distanced, of course. There's loads of different ways, and you can also volunteer for us as well. It's a brilliant charity, a very positive charity. As a team, you know, we're a very, very small fundraising team working across the whole of the north of Ireland to ensure this service is sustainable for everybody here.
Super, Colleen, thank you so much for your time. And I know Cahill has a wee video there he's going to perhaps play it for us. So listen, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining me, and we'll touch base over the next few days. Thanks
everybody. Take care, Nuri. Bye.
Bye. So we're back, and that was, such a great insight, I feel, for the work that the Northern Ireland Air Ambulance do, or Air Ambulance NI do, and a service, as I said, that can be, is so important for everybody. A few other topics that I wanted to touch on this week: water safety. And as anybody that perhaps follows my social media will know, that I am a huge fan of open water swimming. I thoroughly enjoy it, and it has definitely been my therapy over the last few weeks from we've been able to get back into the water. But like everything, water, like everything in nature, water really needs to be treated with respect. It is fantastic therapy. It can be our best friend, and I guess also our best ally and our worst enemy, if not treated with respect. I had an experience last year where I was swimming locally in Camla Lake with a friend who is a confident swimmer as well, and we weren't swimming out very far. We were only heading out a little bit, and the water was a little bit choppy, nothing major, nothing that would have sort of screamed risk, and we were both comfortable, confident swimmers. And in that few minutes, and we were only perhaps 2 to 3 minutes into the water, a little bit of water splashed up onto her face, and she panicked, and quite a full-blown panic attack ensued from that situation. Now, I was luckily, and I was able to calm her, I was able to support her, and I was able to make sure that both of us got back to land safely. And as I said, we weren't very far out, but it was far when you, A, can't touch the bottom, B, have kind of nothing to grab onto, and C, that distance feels like a really quite a long way away. So I came home that evening, and the first thing I purchased was a tow buoy, and it has been my friend ever since. And whilst I'm totally confident in the water, that confidence shouldn't bring complacency, and that was a really, I suppose, important wake-up call for me, that if I wanted to enjoy the water and I wanted to enjoy swimming and enjoy being part of that kind of space, then I needed to respect the water and to respect the risks that it can bring. So what I would recommend, I think we all need to learn how to confidently be in water, to be safe in water. I think swimming is perhaps one of the most important life skills we can give anyone. Indeed, for me, it is such an amazing exercise. There's no weight, it's no weight bearing, and it gives, it's something that people can do well into their 80s. I have a friend whose grandmother is 92, and she open water swims every day. So, or certainly every day that she can, that the water near them is safe and secure to do so. So, and we know that there's an increasing number of young people who are spending time near water, whether that's Camla Lake, One Point Front Shore. Unfortunately, we've also heard reports of young people gathering around quarries and all of those things. So, you know, the role of parents is really, really important here. And I remember my summers spending time at water and absolutely loving it. I guess there's the added element that, you know, perhaps now more than then, there tends to be some alcohol involved. If you know that your children are near water, please, please, please highlight to them the importance of making sure that the safety equipment stays in place. You know, those life rings are there. They're there for a reason. They are life-saving devices, and they do save lives. So we need to make sure that they remain intact and that young people know to respect them. We also need to be sure that they know how to safely be around water. Quarry water in particular brings all kinds of risks and damage, and whilst I again know it can be so enticing for young people, I work with lots of young people, while I know it can be so enticing for young people to, you know, jump off cliffs and down into water and all those kind of things, and the adrenaline junkie within them really gets a huge buzz out of that. Quarry water can hold untold dangers. You know, there can be toxic. The water can be toxic for a start. It can also be, you know, much colder, like really, really much colder. And cold water shock really makes things quite difficult. Again, Cathal has a wee video there for us. He's going to pop up just in terms of cold water shock and how quickly it can take effect.
Everyone who falls into cold water has the same instinct, to swim hard. But cold water shock can make them gasp uncontrollably and breathe in water. Then they drown. But if they just float until the cold water shock has passed, then they'll have a far better chance of staying alive.
And absolutely, I mean, cold water is something that can really take an effect on your body. Whilst again used correctly, it has many, many health benefits, but we need to respect it. We need to use it correctly. And one of the things to note is that often when you go into cold water, initially you feel the water feels cold, and then your body starts to adapt to that. But there's a point past that where you may feel like it's totally okay, but actually your body has perhaps started to go into shock because you've been in for too long. So it's really, really important to kind of keep a check on your extremities, keep a check on your fingers and see how they're going in terms of blood flow and things like that, because that's going to give an indication, because often the cold water actually creates shock in the body and you don't maybe feel just how cold it is. You think it's fine, and then you get out and or not, you know, but when you get out you notice that perhaps it hasn't just been as okay as you thought it was. One of the other things to think about around water is that drowning often doesn't look how we've caught it on Baywatch. You know, drowning is something that is often very silent. There's not the flapping about with arms. There's not the there's no squealing. There's no panic. The water is, you know, is often in the lungs, and therefore the person isn't able, you know, it's perhaps in the trachea and that as well, and the person isn't actually able to make any noise. So it's really, really important that you that if you're spending time around water, that you know how to look for signs of danger, and you're able to spot those signs of danger, and that indeed our young people are educated in those. I would imagine that it's very difficult to not know that your young person hasn't been out and about near water. So, you know, if they're heading to the lake for the day, if they're heading to Warm Point for the day, obviously, hopefully respecting all the guidelines that are in place at the moment. But as much as that they're also really respecting the water that they're around, and indeed the environment that they're around, you know, that you're encouraging them to make sure that they take their rubbish home, for example. Lots of these areas have been, you know, hugely destroyed with rubbish and things like that have been left behind. So, you know, just encouraging, kind of saying, you know, well, you know, where's the rubbish? Where did it go? And asking those questions can be really, really helpful, because that rubbish finds its way into those areas in nature. You know, if it stays on land, someone has to clean that up. Broken glass, things like that can damage wildlife. And obviously in the water, if there's broken glass gets into the water, that's a risk as well. But it also destroys these areas of natural beauty. So I'm a huge fan of educating, empowering and supporting people to make good choices. And I think education and conversation can go a long way. Guilt and shame rarely change anything. So I don't believe that we can work with our young people and kind of guilt them into making different choices. We've got to educate, empower and support them to make choices that are good for themselves, good for their peers, and good for their environment and their community. So that these areas of beauty that, you know, attract us on a beautiful that we get that you know, that opportunity to enjoy those beautiful spaces. So yeah, that's the water safety bit. And we also talked about it being Men's Health Week. And you know, we know again that men historically aren't so good at getting health issues checked out. You know, they do delay on those. Both physical and emotional and their mental health, it can be a little bit difficult to access men, and that might be a stereotype. However, you know, it's based on statistics. We do know that they are less likely to seek support and seek help when they need it for physical or emotional or mental health issues. So this week there are a series of things happening locally around that concept. I know Clanry Group have some things on. I know the council have some things on. There's lots of opportunities for us to, you know, engage with men's health. And, you know, as women around men, whether that's, you know, a partner, a friend, a sister, a brother, perhaps we can ask those questions and, you know, just say, when did you last get these things checked? And again, I know these things are more difficult at the moment because of access in GPs, but we can encourage it so that perhaps when things return and services return, they maybe have, you know, taken the opportunity to check in with their health and kind of get a health MOT overall in a variety of different areas. If there's anybody watching in there at the moment and they have any questions, please do feel free to post them into the conversation, and I'll see if I can signpost or support in any way. Particular things around men's health, I guess. We know mental health. We absolutely know how vitally important that is for all of us, not just men. We are talking about men this week. So, you know, let's maybe tie into that. And for me, that's something that begins at a very young age. You know, with men, we are so, with boys, you know, it's don't cry, you be a big boy, big boys don't cry, you know, those kind of messages. And they are so detrimental to men's emotional well-being. Perhaps, you know, there's that quote that goes that perhaps if little boys were allowed to cry, we wouldn't have so many grown-up men, angry grown-up men. You know, tears are an expression of hurt, and it's okay for boys or girls, or indeed all of us at any age, to feel our emotions, and to kind of help us to process those in a healthy way. So just brushing them under the carpet is absolutely not ideal at all. Prostate cancer, obviously one that's exclusive to men. So, you know, making sure that you're noticing any changes in toileting patterns, and that we take action on those quite early on. And then you also have, you know, the issues around perhaps backs. You know, men tend to suffer quite a lot with sore backs, and that, you know, that physical pain. And if you're in physical pain all the time, it absolutely has an impact on your emotional well-being, your mental health as well, and indeed on your relationships and everything else that goes through, you know, goes under that category. heart, blood pressure, overall well-being is vitally important for all of us. Let's focus on this for men this week, and let's see how we can get our men to be, a bit more perhaps proactive in their health. We've just come out of a very challenging time. There may be financial worries and stresses. There may be, the idea of having been cooped up within the house as well. That can be, a very, very difficult space for us, for all of us to be in. And the theme this year is about balance and about how we can find some balance in our overall health and journey. Because I believe we kind of have two categories in life a lot of the time. We have people who take their health, their fitness, perhaps not so much their health, but their fitness and their physical activity very, very seriously. And then we have people who perhaps don't do any at all. So it's that kind of middle ground. And, rather than thinking about exercise, perhaps if you're someone who has quite a sedentary lifestyle, you could think about moving. How can I move more? And how can I create balance? Because remember, if we're only looking after our physical health, and I find this a lot when I'm in conversations with men who particularly, have a very strict regime around their physical health, they often are missing out on their emotional, their energetic, and their spiritual and mental health. So, and whilst I'll, accept that one supports sometimes and helps the other, but often it can also be, it almost can become an addiction in itself, albeit a healthy addiction. So, a big part for me is balance. And if there's something in your life that you feel you have to do, and have to is a very interesting word, but if there's something in your life that you cannot do without, that you have to do it, that it's about control, all of those kind of, that kind of area, if it's giving you an opportunity to run away from something else, or from facing other fears or worries or issues or concerns, then it might be a good idea to look at how you can kind of explore that, and get, I guess, some connection with the emotional, energetic, and I guess spiritual development, as well as the physical. Because, as I said, men tend to be quite good. Those that that engage with it, they're really good with logic, with plans, with routines, with structure, with all of those things. And perhaps for a better sense of balance, maybe we need to explore ways of being a little bit more flexible around some of that, and exploring our emotional health and our emotional well-being as well. So I guess that is the key points that I wanted to cover today. Again, I'd like to say thank you to Cathal and the team in Destination Uri for hosting today's show, for giving us the opportunity to talk about those kind of three key topics. And I hope you may decide to perhaps support our Ambulance NI, either through signing up for the Summer Solstice Stress Less Experience, which begins next Sunday, which is actually Father's Day, so it could be a really nice gift there. And it will be the opportunity to join in a two-week program that will hopefully help support individuals and some amazing organisations as well. And we've had representatives of those organisations on over the last week or so. So we have Birthwise, we have PIPS, Hope and Support, our Ambulance NI, and Centred Soul, based here in Uri, who are all beneficiaries of the Summer Solstice Stress Less Experience. So as I said, thanks a million for tuning in, and or watching back. If you're watching back, please share with anyone that you may think may benefit, in particular young people, around that middle section where we talked about water safety and looking after these fabulous areas of outstanding natural beauty that we have in our community, that we so want to visit and spend time in when it's a beautiful day. We wouldn't want to do it if they were covered in rubbish and all that all the issues and problems that leads to. So we each have a responsibility to take those away. So do please have conversations with your young people and help them to understand just how we can all look after ourselves, each other, and these beautiful areas. So I look forward to connecting with you again on Thursday. Any questions, please do pop them into the comments, and you can contact me through trythealternative.net for any information on anything that we've talked about today. Thanks a million to Cathal for hosting, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.